This is a dungeon game by Chris Bissette. Chris Bissette is also known as Loot the Room, and a dungeon game is exactly that. It's a dungeon game with a dragon on the cover, kind of giving you a sense of what we might be getting into here. A dungeon game might be my new favorite fantasy game. It's incredible. It's a beautiful, small, compact zine. It's got a great cover art going on here, and then very simple, clean layout that I'm a huge fan of. What is a dungeon game? A dungeon game is Chris's attempt at kind of creating the ideal kind of like straightforward adventure dungeon crawling game. Now, I'm not going to try and put labels on it in terms of OSR or how it's connected to D&D or the Dragon game. A dungeon game is its own thing. It's a dungeon game. This is the latest version of it that is out. There's been a few different editions. This is the printed version that was last updated in November of 2022. So you might find a dungeon game in the future, and it might have some new changes or some updates. But this is what I have right now, and I'm loving it. It is a straightforward, gets right to the point sort of dungeon crawling game. How does it work? Well, it's a d20 roll under system. So anytime your characters are trying to do something, they have three stats that are available to them, roughly around using strength, using your mind, and using your speed. And anytime you're trying to do something, you roll a d20 and you try and get less than the attribute value that you have in that thing. That's going to handle most things that you deal with. Now, there are some exceptions, like how you roll to attack things and things like that. And what I love about this game is that there are these sort of like windows of opportunity, windows that you're trying to strike in certain things like attacking or saving from certain situations or rolling on magic and stuff that Chris has created so that it's not just roll a d20 and get under, but sometimes you want to roll under your attribute that you're using to attack, but also above an AC value that's given for an enemy. It's a sweet spot that you're looking for. And there's lots of rules and support in place on how you can try and hit that sweet spot. Now, how you hit it usually is going to come at a cost. A dungeon game is brutal. It's not like you're going to die every single time like a funnel game, but it is much more like a, hey, if you're going to fight a monster, be prepared to die. Chris says that in the book itself. You're not the heroes here, or certainly you're not power fantasy heroes from a dungeon like fantasy perspective. When you fight, there's a high likelihood that you're going to either die, or if you don't die, you're going to take some pretty permanent damage, which takes the form of scars. You see, as your characters take more and more harm, they're going to be scarred up. They're going to be physically attacked. And there's lots of cool tables on what that looks like, depending on which body part has been hurt, like your arms or your hands, your face, and things like that. You can roll on these to determine the scars that are happening to you, or you can just kind of decide what makes sense based off of the fiction. The scars are important because they affect things like how you roll in certain situations, like in combat, but they also affect how likely it is that you are going to just be dead. Magic is another thing that's really cool in this game. It's all about rituals. The rituals kind of come in a variety of flavors in terms of words, which could be done very quickly, all the way up to ceremonies, which require a long period of time. Now, there's not a lot of mechanical like restrictions on these sorts of things. You use what makes sense at the table. That's an underlying theme in a lot of the book, which I really appreciate. Rather than trying to simulate everything, there's just enough guidance to understand how things are supposed to work, and then you as a table fill in the gaps. Magic is really cool. The way that it works is you're trying to roll under a value, one of your attributes, and there's sort of these combinations of words that you use to figure out what your spells are. There's even advice in the book on how to pull in spells from other games and what that does to your character. What I really love about Magic is when you learn a ritual, it costs your body something. You have to lose something, either maximum HP or attribute values, and that's how your character can permanently die. You can start your character with like 5 spells, but you're going to just sap a lot of your strength from the very beginning. A dungeon game is fantastic. I highly, highly recommend picking it up, not only because the game is great. Chris is a wonderful designer who has put out tons of adventures for a bunch of different systems, also many system agnostic situations. So I'm going to be opening up my dungeon Dropbox here pretty soon here, and I'm going to be able to run all of these adventures that Chris has written for Loot the Room using a dungeon game. Cannot recommend it enough. Get the print version so you can hold this cover in your hands. Pick up Dungeon Game by Chris Bissette, aka Loot the Room. Bye.